I see in your eyes the same fear that would take the heart of me. A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day. An hour of wolves and shattered shields when the age of men comes crashing down. But it is not this day. This day we fight. By all that you hold dear on this good earth, I bid you stand, men of the West!
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël.
Yeah, and it does seem, Malcolm, that a lot of the sort of attempts to reach Donald Trump went through his son by Russia.
And yeah, you're right. And Donald Trump Jr. is another one of those people who's going to be a key node in this operation. We now have 3 email chains which are critical. The meeting of the lawyer, the Russian lawyer, Venetskaya, her name escapes me right now, and, you know, other information that have come out. Donald Trump Jr. was at the top of that chain. That means that Donald Trump trusted an immediate family member that was not Jared Kushner for these dirty tricks campaigns.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to get that dirty information on them.
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, he is also going to be dragged into this. You know, when the FBI conducts these these family organization plots, they generally label these continuous criminal enterprises. And that's what we have here, is we have an interwoven series of family members and cronies who have created a criminal enterprise to either cover up information, get stolen information.
It is Monday, December 11th of 2017, and the doors are now open for West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. We have our daily special, which, if it's Monday, it is River City Hash Mondays. That's right, folks. We do it all here for you. And another long weekend, and until something drastic happens, there are going to be long weekends every weekend. I hate saying for the foreseeable future, but for the foreseeable future, unless, like I said, something drastic happens. Oh. And Malcolm Nance put his proverbial thumb right on the door knocker. How about that for mixing metaphors? I think that maybe they should change the name from the Trump Organization to the Trump Organized Crime Family, because, well, that's their brand. Might as well be honest about what you're trying to sell. Well, like I said, it was another long weekend, and many more stories than we're going to be able to go through today. And, of course, we'll try to pick up some of these that come across the transom. I put them in pocket, and I save them and for later, because The only problem with that, though, I should confess, is that by the time you get to them, something else has happened, or many more things have happened, and, they get lost in the mix. Well, Roy Moore and Doug Jones are still running their campaigns in Alabama, though it's coming down to a head. Trump Group sent a 12-year-old girl to interview Roy Moore because I guess to show that he doesn't attack 12-year-old girls, and he never attacked any young high school girl anyway. He was a 32 to 35-year-old guy, and he just took them out on dates. They do that there. That's they do that. Trump loves showing off the White House bathrooms, and why wouldn't you? If that's where you're tweeting all the time, I guess so. Bannon warns Trump he's getting happy talk on Russia. We'll have to look into that sometime. Not today. We have some other issues that we will be attending to today. And you know what? I should tell you what they are, and then we'll go back and possibly look at a few more headlines and maybe the first sentence or two. But today in the Front Cafe, we will consider the United Nations official who was shocked at the level of poverty, civil rights abuses, hookworm, and raw sewage in rural Alabama. The city of Milwaukee is under pressure to fire a local contractor for employing the Ku Klux Klan. Well, I don't know. They were able to bring their own headgear. The city was saving money, I guess. And Trump appeared to have never heard of Medgar Evers before insulting his widow at the Civil Rights Museum. In fact, he didn't even know that Medgar Evers was even in the audience until he was reading it on his speech. He learns a lot of American history and civics when he's reading these speeches that are written for him. Quite amazing. Well, after the break, of course, we move to the chef's table. And today we will examine an award-winning diplomat's scathing resignation letter that accuses Rex Tillerson and Trump of undercutting the State Department and damaging America's influence in the world. And California's Getty Museum survived the wildfire that tore through Los Angeles because of a comprehensive disaster plan for earthquakes. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. All right, let's go ahead and dive into the dishes that we've put together here for you at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. We're always busy back in the kitchen, thinking up new recipes and, new flavor profiles for your perusal and enjoyment. Hopefully you enjoy it. So let's see what is first up on the menu. This first dish that we are serving up is by Carlos Ballesteros, and he writes for Newsweek. A United Nations official investigating poverty in the United States was shocked at the level of environmental degradation in some areas of rural Alabama, saying he had never seen anything like it in the developed world. I think it's very uncommon in the first world. This is not a sight that one normally sees. I'd have to say that I haven't seen this. Philip Alston, the UN Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty and Human Rights. And he had told Connor Sheets of Alabama.com earlier this week as he toured a community in Butler County where raw sewage flows from homes through exposed PVC pipes and into open trenches and pits. Well, that's because they're do-it-yourselfers. They don't want to have to depend upon that damn government to tell them how to put their sewage out in the... I don't know what it is about people. Just a small aside. When I owned the Barrel Boat in Sausalito at Gate 5, that was, I don't know, maybe derisively known as the hippie dock. And most of the people that were docked up at Gate 5 had lived offshore. And the town and the regional municipality encouraged less offshore habitats and bring them to shore. And then, of course, when I moved there, we weren't hooked up to city services. Yeah, we got electricity out of a box, and you had to get an industrial grade extension cord, and that's how you powered your domicile. Now, understand, the Barrel Boat was built on a barge, and it looked like a big barrel. It was kind of cute in a way. And but that's what most of the houseboats are in Sausalito, is that they're built on barges. So they're not really seaworthy. Let's put it that way. But when I said we weren't hooked up to city services, what I mean mostly is that we weren't hooked up to sewage. Everything was just going right in the bay. And I was shocked. I'm like, because, I come from, I don't know, a little bit more, a more conscious consideration about what you're doing to not only your neighbor, but the world in general. And the idea of just, throwing it out there in the world just didn't appeal to my sense of humanity, shall we say. So I was a big proponent to tie up to city services, and I can't tell you the pushback. I mean, it was violent. Threats with guns. And, and I always loved the excuse. Now, granted, we live in this giant body of water next to the Pacific Ocean. So, and it has a tidal dynamic, pulls stuff out, pulls fresh stuff in, or dirty stuff, depending. And so people would give the excuse, well, it flushes twice a day. Oh, my God. I thought, that is the worst. That is the worst. So I can imagine what it's like here in this Alabama county. And they don't even really live near a big body of water like an ocean. At least not in this county. Okay. Of particular concern to Rapporteur Alston are specific poverty-related issues that have surfaced across the country in recent years, such as an outbreak of hookworm in Alabama. And that was this year, by the way. A disease typically found in nations with substandard sanitary conditions in South Asia and sub-Saharan Africa. Don't tell the pointy-hooded guys about that. They might not like it. Because I should remind folks that we're not talking about poor black communities only. Alabama has a giant swath of poor white people. In fact, they're poor. There's a lot of poor people there. Well, the investigation by the UN aims to study the effects of systemic poverty in a prosperous nation like the United States. Well, I don't know. In my anecdotal experience, yeah, well, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And if you can't, we're going to make you feel like shit for not being able to. Yep, that's how it is. By many accounts, poverty in the U.S. is worse than in most developed nations, despite rhetoric espoused by Donald Trump and others who claim that the U.S. is the best country in the world. Well, it is the best country in the world, but it's an idea, and how you make that idea become a reality is actually working to make it a reality rather than destroying it. According to the Census Bureau, nearly 41 people in the U.S. live in poverty. That's the second highest rate of poverty among rich countries, as measured by the percentage of people earning less than half the national median income. These income and wealth disparities affect minorities the most. Black, Hispanic, and Native American children, for example, are 2 to 3 times more likely to live in poverty than white kids. Now, in Alabama, of course, there's poor whites. But it's all those damn foreigners, and especially the blacks that would have been enslaved, that now wants to kill everybody in their sleep because they have been slaves for so many centuries. And they're fine. They're gonna get mad and do it. So buy your guns. And you tell the poor white person that those people are out to kill you. And it's their fault. So I think what I'm trying to get across is that even though, poor white kids are getting hookworm, it still doesn't matter. But mostly because the blacks and the foreigners and, their fellow travelers. Hookworm. Maybe it'll keep people from voting, and that's always good. Alston, who serves also as a law professor at New York University, said that the start of the UN investigation of poverty in the U.S. has been overlooked for too long. Some might ask why a UN special rapporteur on extreme poverty and human rights would visit a country as rich as the United States, but despite great wealth in the U.S., there also exists great poverty and inequality. And now it's the turn to look what's going on in the U.S. There are pretty extreme levels of poverty in the United States, given the wealth of the country, and that does have significant human rights implications. Despite these concerns, the Republican Party, which controls all three branches of the federal government, and they have their own like TV channel, Trump TV, plus Sinclair Broadcasting, which is a subsidiary of Trump TV, is on the course to pass a tax bill before the end of the year, and that's only in a few weeks, by the way, that will increase the federal deficit by $1 trillion in 10 years, costs that the GOP says will be offset by reducing an already weakened social safety net. Take it from the poor kids and poor grandma and grandpa and give it to the hedge fund, trust fund babies. Because they know how to spend money. The idea of human rights, Alston said, is that people have basic dignity, and that is the role of the government. Yes, the government, to ensure that no one falls below the decent level. Civilized society does not say for people to go and make it on your own, and if you can't, bad luck. I thought this guy taught at New York University. I mean, this is exactly what we do in America. Politicians, he continued to say, there's nothing I can do about it, are simply wrong. He's going to visit a few other places, too. So, yep. He's going to be visiting towns in California, as well as Puerto Rico, Washington, D.C., and West Virginia. Okay. I don't know. If you can't make it, you are on your own. That's what makes America great. All right. This next plate to come out of the kitchen here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is by the great T-Bog from Raw Story. The city of Milwaukee is under pressure to fire a local contractor for employing at least one member of the Ku Klux Klan. Pictures posted on Facebook of an American sewer system worker's lunchbox featuring a Confederate flag and a sticker reading Invisible Empire Ku Klux Klan have riled up the community as well as local labor leaders. The report notes that the picture taken at the job site is not the first controversy for the sewer contractor, explaining that earlier in the week, company employees were photographed carrying weapons. Well, I don't know. When you've got to, change out a pipe to, what gets piped away, that's pretty dangerous work, and you might need a gun. I guess. I'm curious about what the drayage contractor carries when they're on their appointed rounds. According to the report, American Sewer System currently holds 11 contracts with the city valued at over $1 million, and that has locals furious. We want American Sewer System, the company that this despicable worker is working for. We want them to be immediately ineligible for any city contracts. I don't know. I'm afraid if we keep this up, they might make the KKK a protected class. You know who's in office right now in the Oval Office? He might get the idea. Oh, God, I hope I haven't given the people that are sitting on the couch at Fox and Friends any ideas, because that's how he gets his information, you know. Report states that the company dismissed one worker after the gun photo, and that 2 others were laid off. However, local labor leaders feel that is not enough and have scheduled a rally on Monday at City Hall. Well, maybe American Sewer System is going to have to bring out their goons for that one, too, with their guns. In response, the city has issued a statement reading this afternoon, the city of Milwaukee became aware of the photograph posted on social media of the ice cooler with the KKK and also of the guns. The stickers are offensive to the administration and the Department of Public Works. If, in fact, the cooler with the stickers belongs to an individual working on a city contract, it would be best if the individual works someplace other than the city of Milwaukee. And the Department of Public Works continues to investigate this matter. Now, I suppose, maybe in previous years, the Department of Public Works and the city did a time management study, and they discovered in their investigation that the plumbers' unions have not been getting as many apprentices in their programs, and so there was going to be a marked drop-off of available plumbers to be able to come out and, carry guns while they're fixing manhole covers and what's ever underneath those manhole covers. So it lined up with their quest also to privatize. So they had to get, these outside contractors, which of course are not union. You know that, don't you? That's the whole point. But when you do that, you have to get the available talent. Now, I suppose you can't really presume that just because they're KKK that they can't, put thread on a pipe. But it's all the other stuff that they bring with them too. I don't know. Now, surprisingly, what Donald Trump brings with him is very similar to what the KKK brings, and that's an utter lack of historical awareness of the United States, or any remnant of humanity that might come from, just knowing what the hell went on. This next article is by Randy Turner, out of, surprisingly, aptly named The Inquisitor. It's a safe bet to say that Trump never heard of Medgar Evers before Saturday when he gave a speech at the Civil Rights Museum. For anyone with even a cursory knowledge of the civil rights movement, the role played by Evers is well known. From his efforts to bring justice for the murdered Emmett Till in 1955, to his efforts to bring voting rights to Mississippians, to his assassination in the driveway in front of his home in 1963, Medgar Evers will forever be an icon for the movement that never ends. Only a few hours before Byron de la Beckwith murdered Medgar Evers shortly after midnight on June 12th of 1963, President John F. Kennedy directly addressed the issues that Evers had fought for in a nationally televised speech, declaring that the time for civil rights had arrived. Now, that was a presidential speech that brought attention to the inequality that existed and exists in this nation. That was a far cry from the spectacle that occurred in Jackson, Mississippi on Saturday. The opening ceremony of the Civil Rights Museum had already stirred controversy, with the head of the NAACP and two civil rights icons serving in Congress, Representative John Lewis of Georgia and Representative Benny Thompson of Mississippi, declining to be at the opening of the museum due to the presence of Trump. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders added to the controversy by saying it was unfortunate that the congressman would not join. She calls him president, but according to our style manual here at Networks Radio, we can't refer to Trump as president, so excuse me. She says Congressman would not join P. Trump in honoring those who had participated in the civil rights movement, not seeming to realize that those men, both Lewis and Thompson, are among those who are being honored, with Lewis being the last remaining speaker from the March on Washington. What Sanders said, however, pales in comparison to the insult Trump delivered in his speech. With no teleprompter to aid him, he read through a speech that he was obviously seeing for the first time. Well, that's how all of his speeches are. Rarely lifting his eyes to look at those who were gathered in honor of those who gave their time, sacrificed, and in some cases gave their lives, and the movement that inspired the nation. Trump departed from his prepared remarks, the work of professional speechwriters that featured words with more than one syllable, after reading about the accomplishments of those who fought for civil rights. Trump said, "That's big stuff, very big phrases, very big words. Now let me make it simple for you," he says. Yeah, right. Yes, they were, and Trump was having difficulty reading them. The first civil rights icon mentioned in the speech was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., probably the one name that Trump knew, referring to him as someone who he had studied and watched for my entire life. Meaning, yeah, I suppose if Dr. King was ever in town, don't let him stay in your place. When the speech reached the portion concerning Medgar Evers, Trump once again departed from the script, noting that he had met Evers' brother, Charlie, earlier that morning. Trump described Evers as someone who I liked a lot. Then, changing roles from someone delivering a serious speech at an important function, Trump took on the persona of the masters of ceremonies at a civic club dinner. Or, I don't know, maybe a roast. "Please stand up, stand up." Then he made it clear why he liked Charles Evers. "You were so nice, I appreciate it. You were so nice to me. Charlie Evers was nice to me. When people are nice to me, I love them. I really do. And you love me, right? You do love me, right? Come on, give me some love. Come on." Oh, good. It's really no different than, sarcastically saying, "Please clap." Actually, there's a big difference because the "please clap" said sarcastically, at least it's sarcasm. After the introduction, Trump hurried his way through the prepared remarks detailing Medgar Evers' service to this country, both in the military and through his work for civil rights. And then he appeared startled when he came across the words noting the presence of Evers' widow, Merle Evers Williams. "We are deeply privileged to be joined today by..." And then Trump paused, his eyes darting across the room, "by this incredible widow that's loved throughout large sections of our country." And then there was a long pause. "Beyond this area." Yeah. It was obvious Trump had no idea she was going to be there and no idea what she looked like. "I just want to say hello to Merle." No, Mr. President, you do not want to say hello to Merle. When you were addressing a woman who herself is a civil rights icon and a woman whose 84 years on this earth have earned her a great deal of respect, you may refer to her as Miss Evers or Mrs. Williams, but you may not refer to her as Merle. Then to compound his error, Trump asked, "Where's Merle?" And then this cretin asked her to stand up and take a bow. Gee, I wonder why Lewis and other people decided not to show up. All right, let's get to our break. We'll come back. We'll move everything to the chef's table, and then we'll come back and go through some meaty dishes today. Chewy, if you're vegan, you're going to enjoy it too. So you're listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Last year, America's largest internet provider, Comcast, took over the second largest, Time Warner. So Comcast is now a coast-to-coast beast, running its proprietary lines into 25 million of our homes. Bad enough that this market power allows the internet giant to gouge consumers, but it has an even more sinister reason for muscling up. Comcast, along with a handful of other internet service corporations, intend to eviscerate the pure egalitarian ethic of net neutrality. The great virtue of the internet is that no one controls its content. This digital communication technology has been so successful and socially valuable because it is a wide-open democratic forum, accessible on equal terms to all who want to put information, images, opinions, etc. on it, or to download any of the same from it. But if corporate powers could restrict the flow of internet communication, they could collect billions in tolls for privileged access. Thus, the real motivation behind Comcast's 2016 mega-merger was that their added market control would set them up to be the very gatekeeper that the Internet community doesn't need and adamantly opposes. Want it or not, though, lobbyists for Comcast and the few other giants that own practically all of the wires that link U.S. Internet users to the global web now have Donald Trump's support to let them dictate to the millions of content providers what can go through the wires and on what terms. Rather than having one big broadband freeway open for transporting everyone's Internet content, these monopolists intend to create express toll lanes they can sell at a premium to the richest content providers, leaving all other providers stuck in the slow lanes. This is Jim Hightower saying, there's still time to fight back. Go to battleforthenet.com to help put a stop to this corporate coup.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
The discovery of penicillin in 1928 by Alexander Fleming was one of the greatest scientific achievements of the 20th century. It's hard to imagine a world before the development of what many consider to be miracle drugs. However, just 90 years ago, antibiotics weren't available. Thanks to antibiotics, some common illnesses such as strep throat are now easily treated, whereas in the past they often led to serious complications. Antibiotics serve an important role in keeping you and your loved ones healthy, but it's important to remember that antibiotics only treat bacterial infections. Most common infections such as colds, flu, most sore throats, bronchitis, and many sinus and ear infections are caused by viruses and do not respond to antibiotic treatment. These infections can be overcome by simply treating the symptoms and letting the illness run its course. Unfortunately, antibiotics have often been overused, resulting in decreased effectiveness and an increase in antibiotic-resistant diseases. Antibiotic resistance, or the increased ability of bacteria to survive in the presence of antibiotics, has become a major public health threat that we all need to help fight. When a person takes antibiotics, they are at risk for possibly having a bad reaction to these drugs. Some side effects can be quite serious, or even life-threatening in the case of an allergic reaction or severe diarrhea. This is why it is very important to only use antibiotics when they are absolutely needed, and not for viral infections. Talk to your healthcare professional about the best treatment for your illness. If it is caused by a virus, follow his or her recommendation for treating the symptoms. Learn more about appropriate antibiotic use and how to feel better when you don't need an antibiotic by visiting CDC's Get Smart, Know When Antibiotics Work website at cdc.gov/getsmart/community.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
From United Nations headquarters in New York, this is your World in 2 Minutes. I'm your host, Luke Vargas, for Talk Media News. Protests broke out across Palestine and a number of Middle Eastern capitals on Thursday, a day after President Trump recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Thousands gathered in the Palestinian city of Bethlehem to voice frustration with Trump's decision before crowds were broken up by Israeli police. The militant group Hamas, based in Gaza, is calling on Palestinians to launch another intifada or uprising against Israel. While widespread violence has not been reported, the U.S. government is nonetheless warning American citizens in dozens of countries to avoid protests and large crowds. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said Thursday the U.S. won't lift sanctions on Russia until Russian troops exit Crimea and contested parts of Ukraine. Here was Tillerson at a press conference alongside the president of Austria.
The issue that stands in the way is Ukraine. And we've made this clear to Russia from the very beginning that we must address Ukraine. It stands as the single most difficult obstacle to us renormalizing a relationship with Russia, which we badly would like to do.
The U.S. has maintained sanctions against Russia since early 2014. And the German politician Martin Schulz is proposing the creation of a United States of Europe, a new federal country born from the European Union. In a speech Thursday, Schulz said the countries opposed to the idea should just leave the EU and let others take the lead. Schulz's comments come as the EU prepares to sue 3 countries, the Czech Republic, Hungary, and Poland, for failing to take in enough refugees. The idea of a United States of Europe has slipped in and out of fashion since the 1800s, but polls suggest a narrow majority of Europeans now favor the idea of closer ties that could culminate in the creation of a new country. For more global news headlines, visit TalkMediaNews.com.
So we have moved everything back to the chef's table for a little bit of an in-depth discussion that's intimate, and that intimacy can only be had in the kitchen with the chef. And I am your chef, Justice Putnam, and this is West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And this is the time when we do the weather. And in the time that I began doing the show, and when I had opened up the Weather Underground page, where I have preset all the cities, including my own, now that page cannot be found. Their website has disappeared. I don't know. I'm thinking it's AccuWeather, and that guy's a Trump fanatic, and you never know. So I'm going to, a generic weather around the world today, so you'll have to bear with me. Now, I do know, just from looking at my own thermometers and barometers around the house and in the garden, is the temperature currently is 27 degrees, and we will be going up to 56 is what the forecast was before everything went kaput on Weather Underground. And we have overnight lows forecast for the next several days in the 20s. And rain should be occurring, at the end of the week. And if we have the lows that we do have overnight, that means snow. And everybody loves snow for Christmas. We are currently under an ice fog advisory, which means that when people are driving out in the ice fog, their windows get like a sheet of ice on it. And my experience is that it doesn't refract very well. It diffuses really extraordinarily great, and you can't see a thing. So be careful out there. All right, so this might be a little slow because I have to put in each city. as I go along. And right now, London is currently 37 degrees, partly sunny. They will be dipping down during parts of the day below freezing, and though it's sunny now, they have been having rain and snow. And it looks like they will have overnight lows in the low 30s, upper 20s. And that's quite interesting. Okay, let me get to Paris. And, yes, well, we'll go Paris. Ile-de-France, that's what we like. And they are currently 43 degrees with low clouds. Forecast a low of 35 and a high of 42. Currently, winds are 16 miles per hour from the southwest, but they had a wind advisory that with a possibility of shutting down their infrastructure. So, and that was the same place with Rome. Let's see what Rome is with their winds as well. And they are currently, oh my God, 61 degrees. And their forecast, let's see, a low right now of 56 with a high of 63. Winds are 17 miles per hour from the south, and they had a wind advisory to shut down their infrastructure. I don't know, maybe 16 miles per hour is enough to shut down in Rome. I'd hate that, especially when you want a nice espresso. Okay, Kiev is Ukraine. Yes, we want Ukraine. Come on. Okay, Ukraine, 32 with passing clouds. Feels like 25. Brr. Forecast of currently 38 of a high, and then a high of 46. Winds are 8 miles per hour from the south. Okay, well, if I skip places, I apologize. But right now, we're going to Hong Kong. And Hong Kong is country? Yes, administrative segment. They are 66 degrees, passing clouds, forecast 61 with a high of 66. And winds are 6 miles per hour from the southeast. Tokyo. We're almost done, folks. Tokyo. Yes, we want Tokyo. Okay, Tokyo. Yes. Tokyo Prefecture. We like that. Tokyo is 47 and cool, I would think. And it even feels like 47 degrees, though some people think it feels like 42 because they can't see that it's not a squiggly number because of bad glasses. And the forecast is a low of 38, high of 50. Winds are 13 miles per hour from the west, but they don't have a wind advisory to shut down their infrastructure. Isn't that something? All right, so Sydney, Australia. Sydney, yes. Right there in the New South Wales. 70 degrees with passing clouds. Forecast low of 67 with a high of 81. Winds are 12 miles per hour from the east. And depending on where you are, I don't know if that's really good for, onshore wind. You like an offshore wind, maybe. All right, so, so we're coming back here to the United States and to San Francisco, California, is currently 50 degrees with passing clouds because they have winds at 3 miles per hour from the southeast. Forecast low of 51 with a high of 66. And New York is 36 degrees and sunny. Feels like 30. And they have a forecast low of 36 with a high of 41. Winds 8 miles per hour from the west. And that is your weather from around the world. And that was brought by some sort of generic weather forecasting outfit that timeanddate.com. Okay, I had to have them fill in. Hope it's not from Russia. So isn't that something? Weather Underground came back. Whatever their problem was, they were able to fix. I miss Kabul, and they're 36 degrees with smoke. because, well, that's how they keep warm. They're burning things. And I don't believe it's rock, though there's a lot of rock around there. Okay, let's get into these main dishes that I wanted to present to you here at the chef's table. This next article is an exclusive by Dan DeLuch and Robbie Gramer with the magazine Foreign Policy. An award-winning U.S. diplomat who was seen as a rising star at the State Department has issued a scathing letter accusing Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and the Donald Trump administration of undercutting the State Department and damaging America's influence in the world. Elizabeth Shackelford, who most recently served as a political officer based in Nairobi for the U.S. mission to Somalia, wrote to Tillerson that she reluctantly had decided to quit because the administration had abandoned human rights as a priority and shown disdain for the State Department's diplomatic work, according to her letter obtained by Foreign Policy. I have deep respect for the career foreign and civil service staff who, despite the stinging disrespect this administration has shown our profession, continue to struggle to keep our foreign policy on the positive trajectory necessary to avert global disaster in increasingly dangerous times, Shackelford wrote in her November 7th letter, and one phrase was redacted on Shackelford's request. And I think that's the one where she said, and Rex Tillerson, you should quit too. I think that's one. With each passing day, however, this task grows more futile, driving the department's experienced and talented staff away in ever greater numbers, she wrote. Her former colleague said her departure and the sentiments expressed in her letter reflect a wider exodus of mid-career diplomats who have lost confidence in Tillerson's management and the Trump administration's approach toward diplomacy because they don't believe in it. They don't believe in human rights. They're there to make sure that human rights protections are dismantled because authoritarians do not like human rights. And when your mission in life, I don't know, is to acquire all the wealth in the world and share it among a few of your friends, while everybody else suffers and starves, human rights, I believe, pretty much is low on your list. In fact, it might be an impediment to your acquisition of everything on God's good earth, if you believe in that sort of thing. In her letter, Shackelford said she was leaving with a heavy heart as she recognized the potential of the State Department's mission. She said she was shocked when Tillerson appeared to cast doubt on the importance of human rights in remarks to department employees on May 3rd. The State Department's role in internal government debates has also diminished, she wrote, with the White House handing over authority to the Pentagon to shape the country's foreign policy. Well, I don't know. Act with the brashness of, I don't know, strip club hawker and carry a big stick. I think that's what we're doing in the world right now, isn't it? Well, the cost of this is visible every day in Mission Somalia, my current post, where states' diplomatic influence on the country and within our own interagency is waning, she wrote, about military over diplomacy. In the closing paragraph of her letter, Shackelford called on Tillerson to stem the bleeding by showing leadership and a commitment to our people, our mission, and our mandate as the foreign policy arm of the United States. Apparently, her statement that I thought was redacted was not. Because then she concluded with, if you are unable to do so effectively within this administration, I would humbly recommend you follow me out the door. And that's spoken like a true diplomat, because I would have said, hey, mofo, wake up. But
I used to work in the oil fields, and that's how you got to talk to those guys. Well, she's a lot more diplomatic than I would have been. And for good reason. Let's see. Shackelford is not alone in accusing the Trump administration of backsliding on America's support for human rights and democracy over the past 10 months. Republican Senator John McCain, chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, and Senator Ben Cardin, the ranking Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, wrote a letter to Trump on Friday, accusing his administration of failing to assert America's commitment to human rights. Well, I don't know. Lindsey Graham was a great human rights advocate, too, and you don't hear him talking about anything because he thinks he's in line for the Secretary of State position. And I don't know, maybe my experience is you don't need to dangle any of this stuff in front of McCain. He'll change his mind back to whatever you want very soon because he is a renegade rebel. So, Ben Cardin, he's a Democrat, so I would probably presume that he's an advocate of human rights and he'll be unwavering. The lawmakers wrote that for much of the past year, our national voice on international human rights issues has largely been silent. But Deputy Secretary of State John Sullivan told the House Foreign Affairs Committee on Thursday that in a recent tour of Africa, he repeatedly raised human rights concerns with governments in Ethiopia and Sudan, saying it was crucial. It was crucial and a crucial element in the fight against terrorist threats. Well, you would hope so. The United States continues to emphasize the respect for human rights as a fundamental part of our counterterrorism strategy, Sullivan told lawmakers. 6 months ago, when Shackelford began considering leaving the Foreign Service, her mentors and colleagues encouraged her to stay the course, telling her she had a promising career ahead of her and that the difficulties would pass. But in a sign of plunging morale at the Foreign Service, when she spoke to the same colleagues 2 months ago about resigning, she got a much different response. It had completely changed to a person, she said. Nobody tried to talk me out of it. Everybody said, yep, I get it. And indeed they do. All right, our last offering here at the chef's table in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is by Suzanne Barlin out of Reuters. Southern California's Getty Center, one of the world's wealthiest art institutions, said it had survived a wildfire tearing through Los Angeles thanks to a disaster plan that it has already in place for earthquakes. Fires that had chased almost 200,000 Californians from their homes covered the Getty's hillside's location in smoke this past week. Perched above the busy 405 freeway, an artery of California's traffic system, the Getty is among the most visited U.S. museums and reopened just on Friday after being closed for 2 days. The Getty's design and a plan developed with insurers eager to keep the valuable collection safe helped shield from damage art including Edward Manet's Spring, for which it paid more than $65 million in 2014. More than 5,700 firefighters have battled 6 large wind-stoked fires and several smaller ones that erupted since last Monday, and more than 200,000 people have been forced to evacuate. Actually, overnight, it's making its way to the coastal communities, and that's not very far. The Getty's design, as gray clouds swept onto the campus earlier this week, that's the museum grounds, they mean, a high-tech air filtration system pushed air out of the buildings, making it harder for smoke to seep inside. And let's see. That was the Assistant Director of Insurance and Risk Management, Linda Somerville, for the J. Paul Getty Trust, which oversees the Getty Center and has nearly $12 billion in assets. Well, that's good, including the art. Not just the land, but the art, too. The museum has its own water tanks and has landscaped the complex in order to keep the flames at bay. Let's see. By putting all these bells and whistles in, we were able to wet down our hillsides, close intake valves, and keep smoke and debris out. Well, also what they did is that they used landscape foliage that is pretty much impervious to being burned. They don't flare up. They don't have like the oils and whatnot, like eucalyptus. They like to just flare. Don't have that on their land, on their property. That's good. Now, Getty's representatives meet quarterly with U.S. representatives in the commercial property insurer FM Global. The Getty's insurer to review everything from brush on the property to sprinkler system design. The Getty, which opened in 1997, also works year-round at preventing potential earthquake damage. Art and display cases throughout the museum sit atop systems that absorb the energy of earthquake vibrations known as base isolators. And experts who repair art and artifacts in the Getty's conservation labs must secure the items to stable surfaces in case an earthquake hits. Everything is lashed down at all times. And also the reason that they have these fire suppression systems, because you would think that wouldn't go along with earthquakes, but fires always are part of earthquakes. And history proves that. All right, so that's the end of our broadcast period, and we better get out of here. Got some great content coming out throughout the rest of the day. Hartman, Democracy Now!, Randy Rhodes, just a fabulous array of fantastic voices in resistance radio as we know it today. So we'll be back here tomorrow. Of course, it's Tuesday, and we'll have Terrytown Chowder Tuesday. That's what we have as our daily special, so join us then. And stay listening to Netroots Radio 24/7, 365. We'll see you tomorrow on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver.